Hi, I'm Becky Nunn, and I'm shooting here with Artbeads in the Nunn Design office in Port Townsend, Washington. And in this particular filming, we're going to be showing how you use two-part resin, colorize it, and then put a transfer sheet over the top to create a faux French enamel look. In this video, we're going to show you how to use transfer sheets to create a faux French enamel. What you'll need for this project is the transfer sheets, a little bit of paper towel, some colorized resin, and you might want to watch the video on how to colorize resin. You'll need a little dish of water, a tag, you want to cut some of your pieces out, some Q-tips, and some pointy things to move your resin around with. The first step is we're going to colorize our flat tag. And on these particular flat tags, you can see that there's a curved edge on this side and then a very flat edge on this side. I'm going to be using this flatter edge. I find that that's easier for making sure that the resin doesn't go off the sides. With your two-part colorized resin, you're going to want to go ahead and pour some from your stir stick right onto the flat tag. My resin is starting to get really thick because I mixed it a little bit ago, but it's still going to be fine. Go ahead and put a little bit on. I tend to always under pour my resin, and then that allows me to go ahead and add some more if I need to. But I'm just scooching it over to the sides of the piece and letting it know where the edge is, because the resin is self-doming and it will get to that edge and then stop. More than likely your resin won't be quite as thick as this, and it'll be easier for it just to flow right to the edges. If you have too much resin, you can always use your toothpick and pull some off. So I'm scooping it up, rolling it onto my toothpick, and scraping it off. So I had a little bit of excess, and it also shows you what you can do with that if you have too much. That's especially true when you are using it when it's as thick as I am right now. So when you get to the hold area, you're just going to want to bring your resin right over to those side edges. And see how it just wants to know where that edge is, and then it stops. So since I'm going to be going ahead and putting a transfer sheet over this, and then I also have intentions to put a little bit more resin on top of that, I don't want to have my resin to be too high. If you wanted your tag to be even wider in color than this, you can add a little bit more of the colorant before you put it down onto the tag. And you don't have to use white, there's many different colors, and then you can pre-mix making any color that you want by just blending them together. With that last scoop, I took off a lot of resin, so I might want to add a little bit more, but let me just get it into this hole over here, or away from that hole, over to that side edge. And now my piece will start to self-correct and start to fill in this area right here. Again, this resin is super, super thick, so it's a little bit more challenging, but this is a great way to show how you can use all bits of your resin before it goes too hard. So then once I have my piece where the resin is all the way over to the sides and it'll start to self-dome and even itself out, you can see it's already starting to do that. You're just going to want to put like a little glass dish over the top, or you're going to want to put a little plastic cup over the top, something to prevent from the dust getting into the resin while it's sitting. So you want to let this sit for about 12 hours before we do the next step. After your tags have time to fully harden and cure, you're ready for the next phase, and that is to apply the transfer sheets onto the pieces. How we're going to do that is we're going to cut out the pieces and the sizes that we want. So I like to make sure that I'm not going to have a lot of extra overhang on the piece. So if that was the case, you can take your scissors and trim off the excess here. The "we" fits perfectly right there, so we can go ahead and do that one. So taking your transfer sheet, you're going to want to submerge it into a little dish of water. Don't fill your water dish up too high, otherwise when you're down there poking around, you will spill it over the edges and onto your work surface. The transfer sheets are printed on a film that has a paper backing, and while it is sitting in the water for 30 seconds to 60 seconds, it's separating the film front from the paper back. You're going to want to have a Q-tip for burnishing it down. You also want to have a piece of paper towel. So once your piece has been in there about 30 seconds, you see how it's sliding off of that paper back, the film front? You'll want to keep it in position because that backing is a little bit sticky, and we're going to want to have that adhesive when we do the transfer onto the tag. So I'm just using my paper towel to dry off my transfer sheet and to get the excess water off of my fingers. Then I can take my flat tag and transfer my image. See how my paper is still in position? And you slip it out from behind it. Then with my Q-tip, I can start to move it around slightly and then burnish it down into position. The transfer sheets are very, very fragile, so you're going to want to be gentle, but at the same time you're going to want to be firm while you adhere it to the base. Next, you want to take your 2-part resin that you've mixed following the manufacturer's instructions, and you're going to pour it over the top of the tag, and this is going to give that little transfer sheet a little bit of extra protection. And since we've already have a little bit of a dome, we're going to want to just put a tiny bit on, and it's always best to just add a tiny bit and add more to it than to overpour and have too much. So just put a little tiny bit on there, and then with your toothpick you can start to slide it around and bring it over to the edge. And this is a self-doming resin, so see how it gets over to that edge? It just wants to know where the edge is, and then it'll stop. And this is why it's really important that when you're doing the colorizing part, that you don't put too much resin down of the colorants and create too high of a dome, because then this part gets a little bit tricky. But see how I'm just bringing it over to the edge where my hole is and just kind of showing it. This is where you want to be, and then coming around to the other side. I have a little bit of the iridescence of underneath that transfer sheet showing right there. I'm not sure if that's gonna hide any when I get that resin on there, but it could because it could be because the surface of that area, there was a little bit of a dip going down that I might not have had a full-on contact, so there's a little bit of a gap underneath there, and so that's why it's showing a little bit of the color change. But if it had been a really flat surface and I had burnished it really well, then that would blend in very nicely. But those are just something that I'm noticing in this bright light. And that is how you create a faux French enamel piece. On these pieces here, I didn't put that second hit of the clear resin over the top. On this one I did. On these I just put a sealant over, and I don't like the finish as much as I do when I poured the clear over the top, so you can see the difference. And these parrot earrings here, did the same thing, colorized the resin, poured it in the base. When that cured, put the transfer sheet over, and then poured clear resin. On this piece, the same, I put the white resin in the base, but on this one I had one of our Paris transfer sheets, put that over the white cured resin, and then put a clear over. And you can see it, make almost like a porcelain-like look. This is Becky Nunn, on location here at Nunn Design in our office for Artbeads.